We are the Keyboard Samurai, a podcast focused on sharing insights to help those working in cybersecurity companies, be them technology or services. Each session, your host, Will Klusovsky, aka Will Clue, sits down with professionals in our industry to illuminate topics that will help your security biz, team, or self be better. Let's hack into it now.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. Will here. Today, we've got Ron. Ron, why don't you give us a quick intro on who you are and why we care?
Hey, I'm Ron. You shouldn't care. Just kidding. I'm Ron. I've been in the IT/cybersecurity industry for, seems like 1,000 years now, but it's actually been 20. Did a bunch of things. I started as an IT guy, managing like an infrastructure for a really, really small company in Irvine, California. Moved up, and in a certain point in time, one of my bosses back in the day just asked me a question. Hey, I asked them a question. Hey, somebody needs to take care of all this cybersecurity stuff. And he looked at me like wide-eyed and said, well, you do it. And that's how I got into cybersecurity. And here I am today, after I think I've been doing cybersecurity for 12 years now, 8
Right.
years in IT, 12 years in cyber. I've worked in financial firms, I've contracted for some big and interesting companies like Mercedes-Benz. And my favorite company I've ever worked with was the Los Angeles Clippers, where every time they had a game, we got 2 free tickets to sit down
Nice.
in the arena in Staples Center and just watch the game. So that was my favorite gig. It's worth to be in IT and cyber. Sometimes you get these very interesting gigs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know a lot of people who have gotten to go to the Masters for free and do some other cool stuff like that just as a result of their job.
Yep.
So we're going to talk.
These are the perks of being in tech.
Right. Yeah. And working 50-hour, 60-hour weeks sometimes.
Yep. You get to watch a nice game for free.
So we're going to chat about client expectations. Interesting because you've been on both sides. I've been on both sides. You know, I've been a buyer and a seller, so to speak. So this should be a lot of fun. So I guess when we talk about, managing client expectations, like from your point of view, what's some of the most common misconceptions that clients will have about cybersecurity engaging with us and on the services or the product side?
I find it that the best thing not the best, but the most interesting thing when you get into a conversation with clients, since I know both IT and the cybersecurity side of the house, is they don't recognize the demarcation line. And sometimes we don't even recognize the demarcation line between IT and cybersecurity. So you come in and you say, I'm selling a cybersecurity product, or I'm selling cybersecurity as a consultant, advisor, an antivirus or a SOC as a service or something like that. And then they continue on to just questioning, asking you about, hey, do you also monitor network traffic? Well, yes, but I monitor it for security perspective and not for, hey, is it fast or slow? Kind of, which is more of a knock. So you have to sometimes say, okay, this is a SOC, Security Operations Center, that is what we do, and that's a knock, that's what they do. Do you update antivirus, or do you update patches? Well, that's it's more of an IT role than a cybersecurity role. Our cybersecurity role is to maybe scan the computers and say, hey, these systems need a patch, and then the IT needs to patch it. So there's always this line of demarcation, and in every conversation with a client, there's always this thing that you have to set those boundaries. This is what we do, and that's what IT or networking does. So
Right.
You have to have some sort of a solution for that, because we can probably help you with that somewhat, but that's not what our core competency is.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting because I've seen that demarcation line move. I mean,
and it moves between company and company.
Well, and decades ago, like identity wasn't a security thing necessarily, and now it's a big part of security. And like you just mentioned, patch management. Well, yeah, there's infrastructure teams or business units that are doing it, but the security team's driving it. And I think a lot of people forget that as security professionals, our job is to, basically create the policy and enforce the policy. We don't have to push the buttons, but in some cases we do. So that demarcation
again, depending on the individual company, some cybersecurity companies will say, hey, we'll do it for an extra fee because it's an extra work and they can do it. because the skill set is there and they might choose to do it. But in most cases, think of it as like, I think, like a home inspector. Well, the home inspector, we say this needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed. We don't go and patch it ourselves. There's the contractor that does that.
Right. I love that analogy. It's a good one. I'm gonna have to steal that and use it some more. So in that same vein, the idea being that, okay, well, we've got to sort of set excuse me, set these expectations. And where else do you kind of see misalignment happening a lot of times, or where they maybe have higher expectations of what you could actually potentially do?
Well, I think the biggest misalignment in the cyber security world and clients interaction is when clients hire us to provide some sort of a solution. There is this misconception that it's gonna be they're gonna be 100% protected, and that's something that needs to be relayed in a very diplomatic way to a client that says, "Hey, we can't guarantee 100% protection." And when I talk to people, when I talk to clients, sometimes I say, we need to protect ourselves as best as we can with the budget that you have in place, because you don't have unlimited budgets. But we also have to spend some money of what happens if, because this is where cybersecurity really gets into play. To identify something that happens, close that, incident response, close that and go back to bit and find out what happened and go back to business as fast as possible. Because, and I say it not to scare clients, I say it to enlighten them. You're going to get hacked. Probably you're going to get hacked. It's going to be a small one. Most of the time it's something small. Somebody steals something from an email or gets into an email and forwards that email to somewhere else, and something happens. And it could be also something big, like a big ransomware attack. But we look at it as, okay, something happened, how fast we can find it, because we have the right tools in place to find it, how fast we can stop it and go back to business with the least amount of issues or data compromise or time down is possible.
All right.
So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions the clients might have about, hey, we're buying all these solutions, we're going to be 100% safe,
right?
And that's just not going to be the case.
And I think, and I see that too. I think the market you're in dictates kind of how that, like, if you're working with the enterprise, that's kind of known, right? But yeah, definitely I've seen a lot in the mid-market and the smaller businesses where it's like, oh, well, I'm paying you to protect me. And I'm like, well, yes, but also, it's about resilience and being able, like you said, how quickly can you come back? And then, and understanding that, you have to spend the right, you have X amount to spend. Let's find the right place to spend
Yeah,
it.
it's spending in the right places.
Yeah. And
like, don't spend it all on just out facing the fence. You have to spend some on incident response, because that's an important part. So if you spend it all in one place and you don't have that other place spent and something happens,
then you're out.
it's a problem.
I think that's the one of the stats I like to use is from the IBM, the cost of a data breach report. And I think it says, like, post breach, about 25% of businesses will get additional budget. And if you look at everything they buy right after it, it's incident response planning, it's improved monitoring and detection. It's all the things they should have spent money on before to prevent the breach.
That's usually how that works.
So getting back to kind of the so you mentioned, kind of talking to them about, we're talking about resiliency, and yes, we're going to protect you, but it's not it's not, you're not fully you're not going to be 100% hack proof. Like, how do you kind of go in and set that tone, especially with somebody where maybe you're not even dealing with the IT team, right? Maybe you're dealing with a business owner, a business line person,
CEO, CFO, COO, just an IT manager sometimes,
right?
That got the word to get something that's related to cybersecurity. Yeah.
Right. So how do you go about that? How do you go in and kind of set that tone with those folks about, like, here's the expectations that we're gonna have, and maybe educating them even a little bit, like you have to.
Yeah, you just it's really important to have a conversation, or even I like to do some research, right? Looked in their LinkedIn profile, if they have anything available online, and then to see the level of cybersecurity education they might have. They might be very good in cybersecurity. They might have Security Plus or CISM or CISA, and then I know I can talk to them in in very professional technical terms that revolves around cybersecurity. If they're IT managers, I can talk to them in technical terms that an IT manager will feel comfortable with. And then if they're like a CFO, CEO, or just COO, for instance, I can talk to them at a very strategic high level and just explain to them in the language that they will understand, of course, letting go of all the technical jargon, because there's no point of me talking to them in technical jargon if they're not going to understand it. So I adjust myself to who the person I'm going to talk with, and I always check their LinkedIn profile just to see what kind of, if they're a business MBA, I know how to talk to them. If they have an MBA, we need to talk about, numbers and business processes. And if they, again, like if they're IT people or cybersecurity people, I know to talk to them about how the more technical aspects, including, the incident response and how that's going to work, because they've seen this before, they understand how that works, and so forth. So just managing expectations by pinpointing who you're going to talk to, who's your point of contact, and what's their education level when it comes to cybersecurity or IT in general, and then just you have to learn. This is difficult for people that like me, for instance. It was real difficult for me because I grew up in the technical world to match my technical jargon into strategic speak when you're talking to executives, right? Because they don't care about all the fancy pen testing and the tools and the I have this wonderful platform that's for that's for GRC. They want to know strategically how you're going to solve their problems.
Right. Yeah, no, that's something I talk about a lot with a lot of people is the whole idea of making sure that you're targeting the audience in the language they speak. But it's interesting too, because you have to be careful, I think, when you're dealing with the technical people like the IT folks, because they're going to want to often kind of go down a rabbit hole of technical networks and protocols and communication paths and all this stuff that is like really may or may not be relevant at the time, depending on whether you're still in the sales cycle or whether you're delivering projects. I mean, we've all ran into that guy who's got all
and
those
they
questions.
always have questions, right? So, and I found that, and this is amazing. I found if you answer all their questions till the end, they just run out.
Yeah.
Right? They just run out, and there's quiet on the other side of the Zoom call, and they're like, okay, I'm done with all my questions. I have nothing else for you. And then you never hear from them again.
Yeah, because you didn't get to tell them about the value.
Yeah, because they've ran out of questions. So I thought, and I've done that several times. It's like, okay, good. I ran out of questions. Awesome. Perfect.
I think that's good for like the audience to think about too, is if you're in that, because we're talking about setting expectations, but if you're even, if you're in that pre-sale stage, it's great if you can go and have a call and answer all their questions, but you need to know that when they walk away from the meeting, they actually learn the value of what you have to offer, why they need to have it, or why you're the partner for them, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And when they ask that questions, you answer the questions, but you always bring it to what you need it to be.
Yeah.
So, hey, protocols. Okay, great. We have a product that can, review the packets, the protocols. There's always now there's an AI component, right?
Sure.
It has to be. There's an AI component that looks at those protocols, match the protocols to if the actual port number or whatever happens to be is the actual protocol that it's sending it in, and then it creates a ticket, or then it sets an alert, or it does something. So always, they ask the question, you answer the question, and then you bring it closer to what your added value to that question is.
Yeah, for me, I've always liked to take that and because I'm used to talking to the CISOs and the CIOs of the world, but that's to kind of take when they get those technical questions to not just, like you said, here's how it relates to our service or our product, but also here's how that's going to inform your GRC program or your security operations or your incident response, or here's how your CISO is going to look at it. Here's how the CEO, and then you get to kind of show your value as a business person, right? Understanding the business of security, and how it actually is going to apply to the client, and not just that one network engineer who keeps raising their hand every time.
Yeah, connecting the dots, because they sometimes it's difficult to connect the dots during those conversations, and you have to be the person that connects those dots.
Right. That's absolutely key. So I'm thinking here. So we're talking about like how do we? Well, we kind of chatted a little bit about setting those expectations, and then dealing with those like the Q&A things with the trade-offs you mentioned earlier about like we talked about. You got to find the right place to spend money. Like how do you usually do that with clients?
It's a matter of just seeing where their priorities are, and speaking to them. A lot of sometimes they know vaguely where they want to go, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they saw in the news someone got hacked, and they go, "I want all of this. I want to be CMMC version 2. I want to be SOC 2 version 2. I want to be ISO 27701." And you're like, hold on a minute. Okay, hold on. Let's break it down. What do you guys do, first of all? Who are your clients? Is anybody asking you to have these certifications, for instance? If anybody asking you to have those all these controls in place? Is the government asking you? Is a client asking you? Is a vendor asking you? Where do you want to go? What do you do? Are you dealing with patient records? Are you dealing with money? Are you dealing with something that's considered to be trade secrets? Mm-hmm. So you have to say, okay, you know what? And it happens to be a lot of times that clients were told, hey, you don't need all of this.
Yeah.
Right. You're a 30-person company that doesn't fall under any of the government regulations. You're not falling under, nobody's asking you to have all these protections, but you do need protection. So let's talk about what you actually need. What do? You're a car replacement company, or car parts company. Okay, great. You're not manufacturing anything that's secret. You're not manufacturing anything that's top secret for the military or trade secret. So let's talk about what you actually do need. So sometimes we think about the priorities are low, but sometimes they're coming to you and saying, I need all of this because I saw in the news something happened.
Right. Yeah, it's always that balance of it always, I don't think I've ever had a podcast, mine or anybody else's, where I didn't talk about asset management. But that's the number one thing, is like, what data do you even have? And then how much
what do you have? Yeah. So a lot of people don't know it. A lot of people.
Right.
99% of small to medium to small size businesses don't know what they have. And when it comes to data, they hardly know where their laptops are.
Right.
They hardly know. They know where their probably gateways are, but their data, I'm like coming in and says, okay, where's your data? First of all, they look at you because they have no clue. And then you need to start breaking it down. Okay, so you have all these platforms. These platforms has this data. So let's talk about the data you have. So this is client. You have account numbers. Okay, this data is kind of important because it has account numbers for banks. This one has social security numbers. Okay, this one has, and of course it's all over the place, right? In multiple platforms. Some of them have, their own CRM. Some of them uses third-party large CRMs that we need to worry about a little bit about less. But there's all these big companies. Investment companies sometimes have their own thing going on their own server, and you're like, okay, this is a problem. We need to find out what you have. We need to categorize it. We need to label it, and we need to decide, because this data is important, what kind of protections we need to put on it. And this is just first name, last name, and a phone number. That's okay. This needs to be protected, but we don't need to spend $1 million on this.
Right. Yeah. The applicable amount of controls for
amount of controls for what data it is. And it's a process that takes time, because first of all, you have to figure out what the data is. First of all, you need to figure out what are the controls that you can put on some of those data, on that data. This is an experience I had like several years ago, but they had like a Windows XP machine that had their entire database on it, and everything was on it. The company that created that database went belly up. So if this thing goes away, there is nowhere of return. And I'm like, okay. And the computer it was running, I think, was like 20-year-old computer, and they're like fine with it. And I'm like, okay, this is not fine. We have to do something with this because this is your entire business in here. And even if it's, we're always thinking in cybersecurity world, it's like, okay, somebody penetrates it, but one of the, CIA triangles is availability. Mm-hmm. So if the thing goes out and there's no backup and you can't recover it, you're done.
Right. Yeah. And that goes, right. I've seen, and that's where you get, like, I've seen people where you put code into escrow for that kind of things, specifically to protect against that. Or, and I deal with that quite a bit with some clients, like you mentioned before, like the lines of demarcation, because now you're talking about disaster recovery, business continuity, which is really, an IT function that we kind of also have our hands into from a security perspective.
Well, again, it's like the inspector. Do you have a working incident response program? And show me that it's working, because you guys have to test it every year. Did you do your tabletop exercises? Okay, that's cybersecurity, but the people that actually needs to do it and do their exercise is the IT team.
Yeah. And I'm going through some of that now with a client where it's like, okay, you need a disaster recovery plan. I'll be able to orchestrate what has to be done, but do your people have the time to sit down and write, the recovery steps for all of these applications, for all of these servers, for everything that you have? Or we need to bring somebody in to do that? I mean, it's not something that Will's not going to do it.
we don't like to write all those things.
We write policies, not well, I guess when it gets to playbooks and stuff, we do have to write a little bit of things. Well, Ron, this has been awesome, man. Where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
The interwebs, I'm on LinkedIn. So Ron-LinkedIn, Ron-Sharon, Sharon. I think that's my username. Yeah. So, or just type Ron Sharon in the search bar, and here I am.
Yeah, you'll probably be the first one to show up, I think, anyway, from anybody nearly adjacent to our industry.
Yeah, probably.
All right, man. This has been great. I'm sure we'll chat again some other time soon.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks for enjoying Keyboard Samurai Podcast. If you'd like to engage, find Will on LinkedIn at /WillClue or visit at willclue.me. That's WILKLU.me for more info. Disconnecting now. Synac you later.